Hello, lovely podcast people. Just a quick intro to this guest episode I did with the guys from Flex Success. Really cool podcast, very fun. I mean, at some points, potentially too loose. But I know as if you're a regular listener of the podcast, you'll enjoy that. We cover, as with lots of my guest appearances, we cover lots of different topics. There's some kind of nice fun, easy listening, enjoyable stuff in there, and cover kind of topics I maybe don't touch on when I'm just talking about a specific podcast in my own episode. So yeah, had lots of cool feedback from these guys. Australians are always good, aren't they, to talk to? Yeah, so I had lots of good feedback from this podcast since it was released by them. But hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think. Hope it's helpful. And until next week, much love.
Welcome back, everyone. We have a very special episode for you today. We have I forgotten his name?
No.
Martin McDonald from McDonald's or Mac Nutrition Uni. I'm not sure which one. Can you please give yourself an intro?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. Do you want a bit of a background for your listeners on stuff?
I would assume that everyone knows who you are, but maybe that's an unfair assumption. So What do you do? Why do you do it? And who are you?
It's one of those things, isn't it? Do you know who I am? No, I don't actually. Oh, good. So yeah, who am I? I guess background is, was as a performance nutritionist, clinical performance nutritionist. So my kind of training, I sometimes have people saying on Instagram, like, oh, you're a bit shady about what qualifications you have. I'm like, I'm actually just not going, oh, look at me, look at all my qualifications. It's just like, oh, they're all on LinkedIn or on my website if you really want to know. But yeah, my background is sport and exercise science, actually. I kind of, through enjoying training and exercise, thought I was probably going to be an S&C coach of sorts and or a sports scientist. But then through competing in natural bodybuilding for 5 years, I kind of fell in love with the nutrition side and ended up doing my master's in sports nutrition and then a postgraduate in clinical nutrition because, as I'm sure you guys are aware, just as you start working with people, this outside of athletes and physiques and this, that, and the other, there's always little drops of clinical stuff that's going on. And so I did that and had a consultancy working with athletes, governing bodies, and then general population. And we did lots of corporate wellness and did that for a while. And then back in 2016, we, as you said there, Mac Nutrition Uni, people were like, oh, you should write a course for people to do. And it's kind of funny, actually, because we had this consultancy and it took all of our time. It was very busy. And I was like, we'll write a course. We might get 50 people on it and we'll just stick some videos on YouTube and launch this course. And it just went mental and, global, 65 countries. And we had to basically do a bit of crowdfunding initially because people wanted something. I thought it was going to be like a little 12-week course. And people were like, oh, it's going to be the best course in the world. Martin McDonald's doing this thing. We're all going to be qualified nutritionists.
No pressure.
And I was like, what the hell? I was like, it's just going to be a little YouTube thing. So we ended up having to get all this like academic grade university learning platform and everything, which was just big bucks. So we basically said, if you lot want this, put your money where your mouth is. And that ended up going really well. So we were able to do it. But yeah, now that's become what I do, really. I don't work with clients myself anymore. I love public speaking. That's my main jam. I remember, in Facebook memories, it comes up.
Yeah.
This thing came up from about 7 years ago. Oh, I'd love to just make a living just from doing public speaking and talks and education. And that's why initially I was a university lecturer for a few years and I loved it, but it was like the red tape I didn't like and all that kind of marking of home, courseworks and exams I didn't like. And but I love doing that, and so that came up, and now I do public speaking almost as a hobby. I don't, it's like the Mac Nutrition Uni is my income and my job. But then, you know, in 2019, I just was like, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to do a world tour of talks, and don't really need to make any money from it, just as long as it sort of breaks even, and then just waltz stuff around Australia and Dubai and New Zealand and the whole of the UK. It was cool. But yeah, that's kind of me now, is this course that qualifies people. And, you know, we've got a big contingent over in Australia. We kind of secured the insurance to practice and to work with clients, you know, in person, but globally online. And so, yeah, that's me.
And I'm so glad that that's you, because the industry has quite a low barrier to entry. And I think it's easy for people to get lost in the weeds and not sure where to turn and have bad influences and really harm clients. And I think that you fill that space so nicely for coaches.
Thanks. Yeah, I suppose I probably should be a bit more clear about what I guess the premise of Mac Nutrition Uni is. Just this, the whole, I feel super privileged, actually. I'm not sure I've said how much I've said this in public, but super privileged, because there's other great people in the industry who probably could have done the same. I was lucky that there's lots of big names in the industry, but they're kind of one-man band, or you know, they do their thing really well, their one thing. Whereas I always wanted staff and, you know, didn't really want to do any work myself. None of the hard, the hard work,
just
the fun
work.
To
people.
Exactly. So I feel really privileged that no one had really brought out an evidence-based nutrition qualification. There are others that kind of sort of tick the box, but they've got little bits of junk in there that just aren't very good, or they don't quite have, you can just read a textbook and pass the course. You don't actually have tutors, and you don't have interaction and feedback and, you know, working through it and having your learning really checked up on, rather than just a multiple choice test and whatever. So I feel super privileged that it hadn't been done, a truly evidence-based course that, like you've said, you know, stops people being misled or having mentors that are a bit weird and wacky and crazy ideas, and stop, you know, it ultimately stops them hurting people or doing wrong by their clients. So the fact that I was in the time and space where I was able to be the person that created it, I love that. Like, it's cool. I'm really happy about it.
Is it going to exist beyond you in 50 years from now?
Yeah. Oh, geez. Funny question.
You're going straight to the death question.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Straight to the jugular.
I mean,
destroyed
don't
really,
mind for the daddy sign over his right shoulder, our left shoulder. It's not more than
Some doozies. I don't have much of a filter, Martin. Sorry. When I think things, it's just like, hey, woo.
Good. Yeah. I'm happy with that. Yeah. So I think it will. I think that's the nice thing about it being, it isn't just me. Like, there is a whole management team that runs the show. There's, you know, we get praised so highly for our student support, and you know, we've got 3 dedicated sort of customer relations executives who aren't nutrition. They are literally there to help people, because it's mental. I've almost turned partly into it's my lecturing role, but with adults, with businesses and, you know, amazing people, but you still have this pastoral thing of like really needing to care for people sometimes. You know, like the pandemic, never before has things been so bad. So it's
what pandemic? I haven't heard of it.
Yeah,
no. But you know, it's like affecting people's businesses and families and this, that, and the other, and it's like being able to support them in that way. So yeah, I very much do think it will outlive me. But it's also funny because I just love it. I almost don't want it to exist. I'd probably be better if it wasn't just the Martin show, but I just love talking and making people laugh. And I'm always like saying to my staff, like, well, I'm not always saying it, that's wrong, but my lectures are better than yours. You know, it's like competition. Well, I'm not saying that, but that's not true. Basically, I get upset when students go, say Sarah Duffield, she's our sort of head of nutrition here. People are like, oh my goodness, Sarah's first lecture, this is my favorite of the course so far. And she's like, and I'm like, oh, I see how it is. Right. Yeah. I'm take some marks off you. So,
Move Sarah's to the back end, you know?
yeah.
Thinking back to uni though, I think some of the lessons that I remember, or the way that I absorb information most, is when a lecturer presented something in a kind of a funny way or gave some sort of narrative around it.
Yeah.
Even though information can be so useful or true, if it's dry, it's really hard to absorb, at least for me.
I was going to say that also aligns with your personality, you know, whereas you might have an average show like super boring and they're just like, I'm just here to learn, you know, and then lectures like real dry and they're like, this guy's fantastic. He really gets to the point. They would hate you, Mark. They would hate you.
Yeah, that's so funny you've said that. There are genuinely some students who, so I go off topic. I talk around the subjects. Like we had this conference in 2016, and it was the art and science of nutrition counseling beyond calories and macros. So it was all talking about communication and, you know, expert communication. We had like a ex-hostage negotiations officer who's now a communications expert, basically talking about what's good listening and what's, you know, being able to paraphrase and summarize with your clients and make them feel heard. But one of the speakers, he talked about storytelling, and the best way to get people to remember is through storytelling, providing feeling within your speaking. But I massively go off topic, but to provide context, and people will literally say, I remember you talking about this client and blah, 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 and you took her sock off like this. And you know, it's like, that sounds a bit weird, doesn't it?
Thanks, Daddy.
Weird. Yeah, why were you taking a sock off? No, so it was like body composition testing. She had edema, and I was like doing her calves, and I was just like pulled her sock like that. Really, really bad edema. But anyway, some people just go, yeah, just aren't a fact. You know, 99% of students are like, love the anecdotes, really puts it in perspective, keeps me engaged, blah, blah, blah. But some people are just like, you could have done that in 60 minutes. And it was
well, you're speaking to the 99%, not the 1% boring people,
right? I couldn't imagine listening to this. I mean, you'd just be put on 1.5 speed, of which case then you become comical anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's the other good thing is they can speed it up. And also people go, oh, the lectures are so long. I thought it would be an hour and it was an hour and a half. And I'm like, that it's great that it's an online course. Then you can pause it and come back when you have an extra half hour. But
learning online.
That is actually one interesting thing. Like I'll listen to someone like yourself or anybody else in the industry, and I always listen on 1.5 speed. So does Liz. I never used to, but I always do. And then when I have a conversation with them for the first time, I'm like, they're so much more relaxed, you know, like they actually pause in between their sentences. And I'm like, or like the recall, like the speed of recall. I'm like, damn, they can recall really fast. And then I'm like, oh no, they're just normal. I just listen to them on 1.5 speed.
Now, being in the industry for so long, Martin, and being exposed to so many coaches that are exposed to so many clients, I imagine that you have a really robust idea of what the myths and problems and fads and stuff are. I wonder if this question is too broad. Maybe you can give us your top 2 that you wish would disappear, and maybe why you think they're not disappearing.
Oh, wow. Cool question. Okay, top 2, sheesh.
Or you could do the politician thing. If you don't like the question, answer a question you do like.
Just change the subject.
I do think that question's quite broad.
No, it is good. I just want to give 2 good myths, because there are so many, right? It's and I guess it's almost this is a very in time and place question, because whatever's, I guess, in my current media, you know, input, that I'm just seeing those myths. But it's funny, like things do come in waves. So keto is a big thing, and then intermittent fasting is a big thing, and veganism is a big thing, and whatever. So it's whatever's smacking you in the face at that time. Do you know what? There's nothing that's, you know, that I feel like is a big one. Or hormones for me is always a bit of a trigger one in terms of, but it's not big, so it's not mainstream. But I guess you guys will see this, but is people making up magic with regards to hormones? And I feel like it's a young personal trainer thing, young personal trainer, young nutritionist, like, and I'm guilty of this myself. Like I'll say to your audience, is like, I'm sarcastic sometimes, and I'll make jokes and I'll call people gimps and idiots and whatever. But I'm also always like, I go, all humans are idiots. And then it's like, oh, you saying you're not human? And I'm like, no, you idiot. I am human. I'm saying it from a place of humility. We are stupid. Like, it's just unfortunately one of our traits of we have an observation and a feeling. We're also emotionally led a lot of the time. I felt it, I saw it, I observed it, therefore it's fact. And that's why it's amazing we've got the scientific method, but unfortunately we're all idiots and we all get led down there. So you have to constantly be challenging yourself, constantly questioning, which is hard work and time consuming. So I sort of, a few years back, someone sent me one of my articles from like 2010. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm embarrassed.
A great measure of progress.
Yeah. And that's another good quote of, if you're not, I think it's a bit extreme, but if you're not embarrassed of who you were a year ago, you're not making enough progress.
Yeah.
And I mean, embarrassed is a strong word, but just the premise of that quote is good. If you're not differing on some point of view, if you wouldn't change everything, from several years ago, you're not developing as a practitioner. So yeah, I talked about controlling insulin for fat loss and this, that, and the other. And I was like, oh man, like what? But you do get misled, right? You're 18, 20, my whole 20s, I just said stupid stuff because who were you learning from? 15, 17, whatever years ago, it's like, they were jokers. The industry was full of jokers, the biggest names. I'm not going to call them out because some of them are dead.
I'd love you to, though. I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah.
There's one big one that's shooting to my mind.
What, Charles Poliquin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charles Pelican. Yeah, not a huge fan.
I call him Lolaquin. Everything he says is just like lol.
So like, when he passed away, in the most,
this is getting dark, isn't
I don't want to say hilarious of ways, but like, what a contradiction.
Yeah.
Everyone was posting up these like selfies with him and like so sad, blah blah blah. I mean, I'm not happy that anyone passed away, but I was like, when is too soon to be like, did we really lose that much?
Or how much damage did he truly do?
Yeah, like his strength and conditioning stuff, not terrible. Nutrition, he really sent us backwards in a big way. Yeah. And like, I am so passionate about driving the industry forward, not backwards, and talking against bullshit, not adding to it. He definitely added to it. So like, should we really be that sad? Don't know.
Yeah, it was really interesting the way people reacted. Like, some people messaged me and went, Poliquin's dead. Have you seen blah, blah, blah? Like, are you going to comment? And I was like, I'm not sure that's appropriate. This is 24 hours. And what do you think I'm going to go online and go, ha? It's like, it's not a nice thing. I'm like, his family would be distraught. I'm not going to be like, who would be that much of a twat? But in terms of the industry, we massively took a leap forward when that influence left the industry.
Yeah,
and what's worse is people going, praising him so highly in terms of the industry. It's just like, I looked up to him and that was good. Like, leave it there. Don't start going, he made the industry better. He didn't. He completely ruined it.
Yeah.
The last 10 years of his career. And it's a huge win for the industry that he's not there. I mean, unfortunately, I believe biosignature modulation is still being rolled out.
You can still be 0% body fat. Yeah?
It's a good business model though, isn't it? God, people spend hundreds on cleansers and detoxes.
It is the world's best. I'd say world's best. That's probably more like Herbalife type stuff. But within the fitness industry, it's the most fancy, high-end money-making scheme I think someone's come up with in the fitness industry with regards to nutrition. Sorry,
people are so bought in. It's culty.
Yeah, and even like I mentioned, some of those evidence-based nutrition courses still have elements of him within their course, despite the fact they know full well, and students have been complaining, why have you still got page whatever 167 in the textbook? Like, it's absolute crap. Like, I'm going to pinch, the whole, for anyone listening who doesn't know, it's like you pinch these different 8 or 12 different sites on the body, and then you come up with these magical ratios. Like I literally was in the industry when he created this. And I remember him going, I've got all the data. I'm going to publish it. I've done it on these military, I'll bring it out and you'll see. And then like 10 years later, I'm still going, sorry, when are you going to publish that? Because it's really interesting. And I'm like, it would take 5 minutes to go, you know, he's basically going, if this is out of line with this, it's like, okay, take your earlobe skin fold and your testicle skin fold, and, or like if you're female, like labia skin fold, and compare them. And then if this one's 2 times more than this, you've got low testosterone. And that would take you 5 minutes to test his hypothesis. Just do it and then go to a lab and just get your bloods done and test your testosterone. And then we'd know if it was right or wrong. And in the 15 or whatever years it was about, no one once did that. But what they did post was before and afters, having done a 0 carb, you know, lick of a prune is all the carbs you're allowed. That was one of his big things, wasn't it? Yep. What was it? It was like, if your skin on your bum isn't the same as the skin on the back of your hand, the only carbs you're allowed is a lick of a prune. Like, what? Why is no one laughing at this guy? They're like, yeah, this guy's amazing. But it was just the most bonkers thing that he came up with these ratios and then went, right, take my supplements to correct these things, but also train every day, twice a day, and don't eat any carbs.
Yeah.
And how convenient.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
He actually created an Aussie skin fold. Yeah.
That's right.
Because he said the back of the hips, the love handle was disproportionately large in Australians.
No.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I've learned something new. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know what it indicated.
Yeah, well, going back to your hormone thing, right? He's saying, I remember having my hammy done in like 2009, pinched. And it was like, oh, your estrogen levels are far too high because your hamstring fold is...
Easy solution. Stop eating out of plastic.
Don't microwave things. Oh my God. But people, personal trainers with the 8-week qualifications from a course, start talking about hormones. Like, are you an endo? No. Like, what, like, can you spell hormones?
Yeah.
Like, what hormone is out? Like, your hormones are like, which one? And like, is that bad? It's just crazy that people get this like complicated thing that even GPs can't work with. They have to send you to a specialist, but PTs think they can, or Poliquin thinks he can fix it with BCAAs. Like, it's just insane.
Yeah. BCAAs. I remember one of his main disciples here in the UK, when like top UK PT, and someone asked him on Twitter, like, oh, I see BCAAs like are really important. How many should I take? And his response, with not like a hint of sarcasm, was as many as you can afford.
Wow.
Like, what kind of comment is that from someone who's like this big time? And then you get all the sarcastic people going, I've got a really good job, so I can afford a lot of branched chain amino acids. So yeah, if I die now, it's just, it's ridiculous.
They were at least taking a lot of gelatin. You know,
yeah.
in hindsight,
the capsule.
There was definitely more gelatin in that protocol than there was.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing, wasn't it? He was like, take BCAAs between your sets and stuff, and it was like 1 gram of fish oil per percentage body fat per day. Some of the most unbelievable. I sort of think I'll know that I've made it when I can say something so absurd and people just don't question it. Just go, yeah, cool. Like, I mean, someone did actually leave a review on my podcast, and it was, Martin could tell me to eat shit, and I would.
We can say shit on the podcast. Go for it.
Oh, okay, cool. And I would, because he's just, and I was like, oh, like, that's cool.
I'm moving up.
Yeah, I'm moving up. Like, let's see what I can get away with.
Almost Poliquin status.
Yeah.
That's funny. Now, okay. So one thing that we would like to abolish is anything to do with Lolican. Mm-hmm. Is there something else that comes to mind?
Right.
Maybe, perhaps, that calorie deficits don't work.
Yeah.
It's my body type that's stopping me. Is that something that's coming up for you a lot?
Always a big one. I did what did I do the other day? I just did a reel on Instagram talking about this V-Shred guy. Have you seen him? All of his adverts, huge.
I wish
and
I
obviously
hadn't.
Eat for your body, eat right for your body type. And you know, even in the UK, again, just
He has 1 million followers on Instagram, D-Shred.
And
Really?
YouTube and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
It's a big marketing machine, that whole thing. And again, yeah, doing these little quizzes to find out your body type, and it's big because people want answers, right? It's like I always talk about macro splits in terms of they just make people PTs feel a bit more like they're doing something. Like if you just go, honestly, it's mostly calories, and they go, but what about protein? You go, honestly, it's just mostly calories. They're like, really? I need a perfect macro split. Honestly, it's just mostly about calories. Like, and that's a boring message. And I want to sort of just say, I did this, lots of people kind of quoting me on it, but fat loss, it is simple, but it's not easy. So it is genuinely, someone even going, how do you prove it? And I'm like, I don't need to prove it. That it's the laws of physics. Like this is
Prove gravity, Martin.
Yeah. And it's this case of a calorie deficit it is physics. It's the amount of energy in a cell, and it's moving out and moving in. There's nothing fancy here. And it's, but what about the fact that back of packets are incorrect? Fine. Remove that. What about the fact that people get hungry? Fine, remove that. I'm talking about the actual logistical situation of if you've got more energy coming out of a cell than going in, it's a bank transaction. If you spend more than you put into your account, it goes down. There's nothing equivocal about this. And so there's little nuances in terms of if we are counting calories, we're getting less calories from certain foods than are maybe listed on labels. Like there's the whole fibrous matrix within nuts that, almonds are the big poster food for that, like 30% less calories absorbed from nuts if you eat them. And people are like, so it just proves that calories in, calories out is wrong. And I'm like, are you mental? Like we've now proven, we know that you absorb 30% less. So we've just improved our equation. You've not disproved anything. And honestly, unless you are an almondarian who only eats almonds, it's not changing anything. Like,
please tell me that's not a diet.
Yeah. Like what's 30% of 30? Like 9. Like, okay, it's now the calories for 21 grams of almonds. Like it's irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, this whole idea that there's something more, it just unfortunately muddies the waters. If people, I spent my whole tour, literally the first 3 hours is discussing really in depth about energy balance. And, you sort of put this, the energy balance seesaw in and out. And people are like, I've paid good money and this guy's supposed to be amazing. And he's talking to me about the seesaw. Like this better be freaking good. It was good. If anyone had the reviews. But anyway.
Imagine if Sarah did it.
Yeah, it would have been so much better.
Oh, geez, I shouldn't have given that away, should I? Jeez, that's going to be come back to bite me. Like, where's Sarah? I've not seen Sarah. So, yeah, it muddies the waters. As soon as people think there's a question there, they're like, oh, yeah, but. And it's like, no, there's no but. It's literally that. Now let's start discussing how you can stick to it, how good you are at tracking it, how much you're adhering, either knowingly or unknowingly, getting things wrong. And I would love it if there just wasn't people going, it's more than a calorie deficit. It's not. And you don't even understand what a calorie deficit is. I've literally just recorded a podcast episode, which will come up in a couple of weeks, but going, what's maintenance calories? Because people are like, Martin, if I jump straight back to maintenance calories after being on an aggressive diet, for instance, won't I gain fat? And I'm like,
it's maintenance.
Maintenance calories. Yeah, I know, but if I jump straight back to maintenance, will I gain fat? No, maintenance. Maintenance calories.
There's another 3 hours on the maintenance seesaw.
Yeah, let's go back to the seesaw. Maintenance. It's unbelievable. But the unfortunate situation there is they're going, a predicted maintenance, or the weirdest one that I don't know how you can help someone who's just not doing this in their head. But no, I mean my maintenance before I started my diet, when I was 20 pounds heavier. And I'm like, we've got issues here if you think that's maintenance calories for the rest of life. So, but yeah, I'd love it if people stop trying to question calorie deficit.
I think that's where the whole concept of the, diets don't work concept too. There's a lot of misappropriation with maintenance to begin with. And the behavior change required to achieve the loss is the behavior change required to maintain the loss. But I suppose that's where the difficulty lies. That's what you talk about, the nuance, It's not just as simple as eat the calories.
No, yeah. People just go, oh, so you just eat less and exercise more. That sounds, no, it's like, no one's ever, people have said that, but it's, that would work if you could stick to it. And it's like, oh, so you can just eat whatever the hell you want. It's like, well, yeah, you actually can. There's lots of gimps on YouTube who are like eating the whey and Pop-Tart diet. That was a big thing when If It Fits Your Macros came out, just people going, I just do Pop-Tarts and whey. And I'm getting shredded. And it's like, it's not hard when you're 21. Yeah. No one's actually saying that in their right mind that people should not care about dietary quality. They're not mutually exclusive, but people create this unnecessary dichotomy between quantity and quality. It's like, no, great, focus on both. But quantity matters a lot more. And it is a big thing, actually. In the UK, lots of our, unfortunately, funding for COVID research went to this moron. And I probably shouldn't name him, but I'm going to. I don't know if he's a professor or a doctor, but his name's Tim Spector, and he's like a gut health researcher. And his team's work is actually quite interesting. Like they're part of the research group who did this stuff. Essentially, your glycemic response between individuals to the same food is wildly different, but not just, we kind of knew that, right? One person versus another is sort of different, but as in, it's this whole thing of like, someone can eat ice cream and it has a, like a high GI, and this person's eating white bread and white bread's got low GI, and it's just thrown really what we understood as glycemic index out the window. It's just like people are getting these massively different responses. But unfortunately, he's now, I believe, my opinion, for legal reasons, is that this is just my opinion of what he is doing, but it may not be factual. Subtext, I'm definitely right. Is just seen money signs and fame signs, and he wants, I don't know, a payday for all his hard work in a lab, and gone, we can now create the best fat loss diet for someone. And it's like, whoa. Like, sorry, when did glycemic index impact energy balance particularly? Like, it's super interesting that it's these dramatically different responses, and that might pertain to metabolic health or something like that. But he's not gone past just literally measuring an outcome and like an initial outcome, rather than, just a simple biomarker. Whereas he's not done a fat loss diet where he goes, so what's happening now is, if you do, it's called Zoe, I think, or something or other, but it's like, if you eat right for your, whatever they're calling it, metabolic type, or you eat these foods that are better for you, you'll lose weight better. And it's like, you've not shown that. Like, I can eat high GI or whatever, and I know I've got a really high blood glucose response and high insulin response, and still lose fat if I'm in a deficit. You've not done anything magical. If he shows by eating these foods, and my specific foods, like if I don't particularly respond to ice cream and it doesn't impact my hunger, I mean, ice cream is maybe a bad one to choose, but like potato or whatever, and I'll be more satiated, then it's like, cool. We know that changing hunger is a super useful tool to focus on when trying to get someone, because you don't want to live your life hungry, right? Like, I lose weight, I don't want to be hungry for the rest of my life. I won't maintain this. We've only got that sort of finite thing until we just crack. But he's not showing that. So that side of things really frustrates me, that it's kind of going towards, that's another thing, DNA testing. That was one of my food intolerance testing, DNA testing. We can create the perfect diet based on your DNA. Like my only peer-reviewed published paper in experimental physiology is literally on what's called the angiotensin converting enzyme polymorphism. And I literally see these DNA companies using this thing that I have a pretty good knowledge on, going, oh, people with the DD allele, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, that isn't what the research shows. But they're going, yeah, like we had DNA tests when I worked for British weightlifting. These are phenomenal athletes. Olympic Games, standard athletes beating other drug using countries' athletes. They're just, we did well. And they are strong as hell. And, one of our female weightlifters, we had, I think it was a Hungarian retired weightlifter. And honestly, the difference, when she was lifting, full on masculine, deep, was like, whatever. And then 10 years later, she'd actually, a lot of the masculinization had gone. And I was like, that's really interesting to see that. But her best lifts, her and this weightlifter, our weightlifter, were very, very similar on like the raw lifts, or kind of just your squats and stuff like that. Whereas this woman had done, years and years of weightlifting since she was young, and also probably been more robust because of drug use, and so was better. But anyway, this athlete did one of these DNA tests, and she's phenomenally strong, phenomenally talented. And it literally said, you would excel in endurance sports. You should not do strength based things. You will not excel. You will not adapt, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it just shows you that we don't currently have DNA testing that, training wise, we're a lot further ahead of nutrition. And training is still just BS. Like, it doesn't, people are talking about DNA testing kids to see where they should go into sport and stuff. It's just like, it doesn't work. We're not there. And even then, what happens if you don't enjoy it? Like, that's also a big factor, weirdly. So, I don't like this whole thing of like, do a DNA test, we'll give you a diet, do a food intolerance test. Like, food intolerance test, just do not work. There isn't one on the planet that exists. That was my other master's research on food intolerance testing. There isn't one that exists. I wish there was. That's why I did my research on it. Industry funded research, in fact. They wanted us to publish data that showed it worked. It would have made them a lot of money. And when we found it was BS, guess what happened? It didn't get published.
Publication bias, here we go.
Exactly, yeah, publication bias, right? So I wish all of these myths would die. I know I've done more than two, but it's good.
I'm fine with that. I wonder if these things are seductive to people because everybody wants to blame something else other than eating too much energy, or they want to feel special. It's like my personal DNA or my special intolerances or something. They don't want to know that like these are just the laws that humans live and die by, or gain and lose by.
Yeah, and I also think there's an element of, and I try and we've got a case studies residential within MNU for our sort of full with honors students, and I talk to people about making your client feel like a snowflake. So there's certain supplements where you use them quite often, like vitamin D. You end up using it with a lot of clients because of just the modern day and the fact that it's so difficult to get it from food. And so there's a different way you can sell vitamin D. Is like, I'll give most of my clients vitamin D. Like, no one's paying you X, whatever, £100 an hour for advice that you give to all your clients. Like, the wording matters in terms of buy-in and adherence. So going in your specific situation, based on XYZ, these blood tests, for instance, because we know the placebo is flipping powerful as well, right? It's like you tell someone something, you get them to take something. You touch someone and do a test, i.e. biosignature modulation, and it suddenly feels more, the placebo works more. And, if you inject something, you pass something through the skin, the placebo is even stronger. Like, even if you're giving them a sugar pill, then you inject sugar, the injection of sugar will work more of whatever outcome you're looking at. I think they've done it in, what's it called? Phobias. So, people can get over phobias with just this tablet placebo, and then they do a bit of a physical examination and they give them this injection and they're like, literally, oh my goodness, my phobia is cured. And these are people who've been like completely debilitated. And it's like, that's how friggin' strong the placebo is.
Yeah.
So you tell them that the vitamin D is specific to them, and they actually bother to take the frigging tablet instead of forgetting all the time. So, stuff like that in terms of, this is your DNA. Like, look at these DNA tests, right? Like, people have sent me, back on my Twitter days, I literally said to people, send me these reports you're getting, so I could just look at these things. And honestly, it's what's the nutrition advice? Like, they're all the same. Eat more vegetables, and there'll be a little difference somewhere, but it genuinely is just cut out processed foods. Your genotype says that you shouldn't eat processed foods, and it's like, no way. Like, oh, I'm definitely going to follow this advice now. It's like the same advice that you've got from, when you're 10 years old. So, but it feels magic because, I specifically should eat green vegetables. No, I never would have guessed that. But it turns out that I've got the genotype where eating crap doesn't, makes me put on body are you aware of Spencer? Yeah. Are you aware of Spencer Nadolski?
Yes.
Yeah. So the first time I think it was the first time we spoke at a conference together, he particularly enjoyed this thing and it was about body types, actually, like you said earlier. But I was like, for your body type, it's like, depending on what your body type is, for your body type, you need a calorie deficit to lose fat. Like, and for your body type, you need to hit, and then he did this quote tweet and it sort of went a little bit viral, which is quite cool. But it is literally, this is what the DNS tests are doing. It's like, you need to eat better and exercise more. And like, cool, I'm going to stick to that because I paid for this stupid test. So all of these things just, they help because someone's paid money. They think it's specific to them. Like you said, like, my personal whatever, I'm special, I'm a snowflake. And everyone is, different in some way or another. And this is why it's coaches are really important. Good coaches, are really important, because you get a knack for going and, through your consultation, through listening, whatever, you get an idea of what you're hearing and they're reporting. And actually, do you know what might help in your situation is X, Y, Z. And, as well as we know, the emotional support side of things just kind of works for most people. And it can be really useful if you can make it unique and make someone buy into the process and support them in the same way as some crappy test does, but you just don't have to fleece people for money for the test.
Yeah, which is what I quite love about the way that you teach things, because you understand, not just the science of how it works, but the kind of the methods to get people to buy in. And I feel like everything that you teach is really practical. I imagine the Mac Nutrition Live Day that's coming up soon is going to be no different.
Yeah, that's a really cool one, actually, because it's ended up, we unfortunately lost one of our international speakers, but I try not to speak at these things because
I feel like this is an opportunity for you, Martin, to come in and really punch it home,
And that's what I've done. So I've taken his slot.
Is he last?
Yeah, well, I get to pick the order, so I
perfect.
I want.
You should have confetti come down from the ceiling and everyone gets a prize under their chair. Now rate who your favorite speaker was.
And a cape. You definitely need a cape.
Can you come out with a cape and you have to like flap it like this?
Have you seen the suit I wear? Oh, in fact, hold on, stay there. Do you put the video of this out?
Yeah.
Or is it audio? Yeah, okay.
It'll be on YouTube too. I hope it's a cape. Is he coming back with a cape?
It better have sequins.
I don't know if you've seen this, but this is like my turquoise suit that I wear.
You remind me of Mask. You know that movie with Jim Carrey? I love it.
Yeah, a bit like that. There's actually a yellow suit that I thought, because I think he wears a yellow suit in that film as well. I was
maybe
he does. Yeah, he definitely does. It's bright.
A bright coloured suit of some sort.
And there might be a green one as well. But either way, yeah. So I don't normally, that's for the graduation ceremony. That I wear that suit for our students. But the live day is cool because I get to sort of engineer what I think people need to hear. And there's some cool topics. One of the first ones, I was actually going to speak on this, but we've got probably someone who's a bit more of an expert than me on this, especially with regards to intuitive eating. And is that coming up? Is that a big thing that you guys are hearing a lot about.
Yeah, well, bridging between like whether it's intuitive versus informed, and then how do we actually like what are people saying is intuitive versus what actually is it, and all that kind of stuff.
So you're speaking about intuitive eating where it meets weight loss, right? And the reason that I think it's really interesting is because intuitive eating is obviously a weight neutral approach. People don't do intuitive eating to lose weight, but I have lots of people come to me like, oh, I'm just sick of tracking and I want to do informed eating. You know, how can I lose weight? Intuitive eating. Yeah. How can I lose weight doing this? Yeah. So I think it's a really hot right now and people need to understand it.
100%. And that's why I came up with the talk title and wanted to speak on it, but just got someone who's an actual intuitive eating practitioner. Okay. So, you know, like you said, it's a neutral, weight neutral approach. And the reason I wanted this talk to happen is because people are creating camps. Like a lot of the non-diet, anti-diet, whatever crowd are basically going, all diets fail, all diets are damaging. No one should try to intentionally lose weight. It will give you an eating whatever, which is completely untrue.
And super disempowering too, you know, like they forget that some people aren't happy.
You have no control. It's your genetics. Yeah,
exactly. Super disempowering. And so it's basically, it's not saying how to intuitive eat to lose weight. It's going, which of these tools do you need at this time and when, etc. And you brought up a good point there about Dean, when you said intuitive eating, like it's not a trademark term. People go, that's not intuitive eating. It's like, I can use the word intuitive, like you don't own it, no one owns it. But yes, if we are talking about intuitive eating, like capital I, capital E, this specific methodology, yes, it's a 10-step process, but I'm eating intuitively. Like I can use that word if I want, but then you almost start going, informed eating or auto-regulated eating, etc. But just knowing when it's appropriate, it's just a cool topic for people to be aware of, and to know that you don't, because I think some practitioners now are like, I don't know if I can help people with weight loss because I just feel really conflicted because so-and-so says, and I'm like, so-and-so's an idiot. But that's not to say that intuitive eating is a bad thing. Like you don't have to be one or the other. Like there are times when you really should probably push a client towards an intuitive eating practitioner to work through that process, because that's really going to benefit them at this time. So that's one of the talks. And then this isn't in the order, but we've got one on body image from an actual body image researcher, super evidence-based. And again, like you said, about we're doing practical strategies. So it's how can you actually move towards having positive body image? Because again, there's this thing of, you know, if I lose weight, my happiness will improve, or I will love myself more, etc. And it's like a bit of a fallacy often. That really it doesn't bring happiness. Like you need to kind of be happy with yourself, and you're not going to hate yourself into change. Like it's not going to suddenly give you the job you want or the partner you want or whatever. There's a lot of self-work you need to do. But again, a brilliant thing of helping that. And then coupled with the third speaker who's talking on binge eating, and which is just a massive topic. The spectrum of, you know, from just a binge, if people use that as a colloquial term, up to, you know, towards the clinical end of the range, but everything in between, which the fitness industry is so rife with. I make this a bit of a joke on my tour of people going, you know, Martin, I came home, I was a bit stressed and I just binged, and I ate and ate and ate until I was sick. And then I sort of cried because I was really sad with myself for binging, and then just ate a bit more. And then I just cried a bit more. And I just really hated myself. And then I slept and I woke up crying, and then I binged. And then, you know, the next day I woke up and I'm just thinking, I just want some advice on that situation. What macros should I do today? I'm like, what? No. That's not normal. You need to go and get that sorted. No, but I was just wondering if is there a supplement I can take? And I'm like, should I fast today? I'm like, you need to go get help. You don't need to look for a magic supplement or what macros, you know, should I try and re-insulin sensitize myself today by doing a bit of a low carb? It's like, you've got an issue. But people just asking all the wrong questions. So yeah, again, a really practical talk on binge eating. And then I'm going to finish off with probably something on rapid fat loss protocols. So just because it's something I asked so much about, and people, whenever I go on like a podcast like this and chat about it, I occasionally will go in the comments. Like, it's dangerous, right? If you go read comments about yourself, just like people full-time jobs of just being nasty on the internet. But people just almost really not listening to all and misrepresenting or I've just maybe not been clear. That's also another thing, is like, oh yeah, I didn't in this podcast mention that because I thought people knew that. So it'll be really nice for me to actually have slides that I can work through in a, sort of pragmatic fashion and build the picture for people so they understand everything, and then go, and then this is the practical protocol that you would use to do, a rapid fat loss phase if you wanted to, and if it suits you. So yeah, that's the day, 27th of November. I can't wait.
That's a really interesting dichotomy of the other three alongside you.
I know, right? I know.
I don't know if you should lead with rapid or end with it.
I've got to end because I can use,
of course, okay, right, but yeah, because it'll be kind of like, now you've heard all of this shit. I don't mean shit as in it's shit. That's just me being Australian.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, if you want to do some cool stuff,
yeah. It's like the fluffy stuff, right? Isn't it? It's like, I really care about your mindset and your body image and love yourself and blah blah. But by the way, let's get shredded as hell. Like, let's all post 6-packs on our asses, like shredded glutes, baby. Like, yeah, it's a real. You're so right. But I think for me, is if I do have the last talk, what I can do is show. I can almost build from where they've said, like, if they've talked about body image in a certain way, like with obsessive tendencies and like daily weighing and this, that, and the other, I can go, remember what was said in the body image talk, or remember what was said in the intuitive eating, or remember what was said in the binge eating one. Like, if you're doing a rapid fat loss thing and it's pushing you towards these binge eating behaviors, because there's still this myth that, if you have a bigger calorie deficit, you're more likely to end up with disordered eating. Like, the disordered eating research doesn't show that, like, at all. It's not a thing. You can get an eating disorder eating maintenance calories. Like, that's what orthorexia essentially is. There's nothing about a calorie deficit in orthorexia.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think by going at the end, I can go, this is frigging cool, but just be careful. As with any dieting thing, is like, we do just need to remain reflective of, if it starts pushing someone into certain tendencies, as a good coach, we can kind of just outline that, rather than the old school mentality of, don't worry about that binge, just jump back on the bandwagon and try harder, and I'll just cheer you on a little bit louder. It's like, let's maybe reevaluate.
Yeah, or shaming the client. You didn't want it enough.
It's going to all better.
Yeah. That's the funny one, isn't it? People joke, like, a 21-year-old with no job, no kids, no responsibilities. Like, you just don't want it enough. Like, why don't you just prepare 42 meals a week like I do? Like, to this single mum of like 4 children with a job. Like,
oh man, we all have 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
Oh,
how much you want
it. Yeah. So this is for not just coaches, is it? Anyone can come.
No, yeah, we open it to absolutely everyone. We have this really big, beautiful conference center. It is sad that I would love to come and do something over in Australia. Like, my one time in Australia was pretty much the best 16 days of my life, if I'm really honest. It was super cool. But in the UK, in East Midlands Conference Center, and it's just open to everyone. It's very much pitched. That's one of the main compliments I get, is dumbing down the science to make it available for everyone. And that's what we say to our experts is, yes, we want you to cite the evidence and the research, but really want it to be something that anyone, whether they're a coach or whether they're hearing it for themselves, can take away and learn and be able to implement it. So that's the big thing. And just thanks for kind of the opportunity to talk about it. We've already got a big, sort of close to 300 people now attending. The other cool thing about it is we do have an after party as well. So it's like a dinner and an after party and stuff. So it's a real nice fitness event, in terms of fitness, health, nutrition event, in terms of, it's nice when you get a lot of people who give a crap about evidence-based stuff in a room together. Because I know a lot of the personal trainers and nutritionists and dietitians who come along, they're like, oh, my colleagues are, still doing biosignature or whatever. And so it's nice to actually talk to someone who's like, yeah, let's talk about something that's actually a bit more client centered. So yeah, if people, I'll just say this as well. I'm doing a code for anyone who signed up to my email list to actually get like 40% off a ticket price. So maybe I can send you the link.
We'll put it in the show notes
for sure.
Yeah,
in the show notes. Yeah,
cool. Be cool. I think there's a real art in, because you said, like dumbing down the science so it's accessible to everyone. I think there's a real art in simplifying the scientific jargon and all of the complications and oversimplifying it to the point that it's hardly true. And I think you and Mac Nutrition Uni do a really good job of simplifying the science so that it's palatable or palatable, as the
Americans
say.
Palatable. Wow.
But it's still, you still know all the things that you need to know, just without the jargon. It's stuff you can remember because it's said with a narrative and a story. And I really love it.
Yeah, thanks very much. It is, I think it's one of those things, if you can't explain something to a child or your grandparents or someone with no prior knowledge, you probably don't understand it well enough yourself. So it is one of those things. That's why I think people come out of Mac Nutrition Uni with so much confidence, and it's hard to really explain why that happens. It's in our tagline, and you can't sell it. If we were salespeople, which we're not very good at, but it just kind of sells itself, which is fortunate. But you can't really sell. You will be more confident after doing this course. And, we have people who are, they've done a degree and a master's from an amazing university and in nutrition, and they still don't have the confidence to put themselves out there or work with clients or know. And then they come out of Mac Nutrition Uni 1 year and they're like a changed person. And I think it genuinely is that thing. They've been taught in such a way that they don't just understand the what, they genuinely understand the why. And like you said, the science enough to go, I really understand why I'm telling you this. And I really understand why it's going to work. And I really understand if it doesn't work for you, what potentially adaptations are that need to be made for you.
It's not your blood type.
But it is. Yeah.
Or the pinch on your ass. But I think it's because they're learning from people that have been in the space, right? Like, whereas you go to uni and you go, oh, that was really interesting information.
What do I do with it now?
Yeah. Now
that's
what?
So Yeah, that is really true. If you learn from, we call it ourselves like academic practitioners. Is like we are in the trenches. Like everyone you learn from, every single lecturer is in the trenches working frontline with clients and has done so for many years. But they've also got all of the 3 to 7, 10 years worth of academic study behind that career. So
I feel like uni's learning through mechanism, and then this would be more through like mechanism and application.
Yeah, definitely.
We normally like to wrap up a podcast with, our tagline for the podcast is how to be less shit.
Just driving home positivity,
Yeah, cool. Love it.
We teach people how to be good. We teach them how to be less shit.
Yeah,
because like you said, everyone is an idiot and we're all kind of shit at stuff and we're all just trying to get better, which is why I got this tattoo, by the way. Oh, wrong hand. I got a mustache tattoo on my finger only 6 months ago, and I'm 32, which is something you normally do as a teenager, because I was like, you do reach an age where you realize everyone else is an idiot and so are you. So why not just get a stupid tattoo?
Here we are.
So how to be less shit. If people could walk away with one take-home message, something to remember, what might that be? I know it's a lot of pressure, isn't it?
It's
a big question. Who are you really, Martin? Deep down.
Yeah. So how could you be less shit? One thing to take away. Like my initial thing is, I think it is really, this is a bit of a gripe of mine, so I'm going to say this, and it's a tricky one. Like I could go read more books, or like get more sleep, or be more grateful for life, or whatever. But this is a bit of a hard hitting one, I guess, in a way, that people do need to stop being gimps. No, they need to start taking taking responsibility. And so I'm not big on this whole this idea of personal responsibility of, you know, the reason that people are unhealthy and out of shape is only personal responsibility, whatever. It's like there's so many factors that play into it in terms of where you were born, your socioeconomic status, your genetics. Like, flashback, they do matter. We just currently can't measure exactly how and what we should do about it, but they frigging matter loads. But people need to start taking responsibility for, and I get this so much through social media. People just want me to be able to send them one Instagram reply or answer a comment. Like, I just did an entire month of content on PCOS, like really good evidence-based content on PCOS that all the time I'm thinking, what's practical? I did one post of what you should eat, what foods you should eat for PCOS, and like went into some decent detail. And people were commenting, I'm so confused. There's so much conflicting information in this area. I just don't know what to eat. And I'm like, that is what my post is about. And like my sarcastic response is, ignore everyone but me. I'm always right. Do what I say and you won't be confused, dumbass. Like, if you're just listening to too many people, just listen to me. I'm always right. But it is in terms of, you do need to stop looking for quick fixes. If people just go, right, I'm going to invest a bit in my learning. We're creating a layperson's course. We're creating a Mac Nutrition Uni for the layperson. We've been writing it now for about 3 years. It's ridiculous. Like, I think it's about 500 lectures now. But they're like short ones, and you don't have to do them all. They're like, there's like a health track and a fat loss, weight loss kind of track and a muscle gain one and a sport and exercise. But there's like a fundamentals foundations thing that everyone does. But if people can just invest a bit in their learning and go, I'm not going to rush to the end result. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to try and just forget everything that's come before, like the fact I've done keto, the fact I've done whatever. I'm going to start again with like almost a blank slate, get rid of all of my stupid biases and go, I'm going to invest in my learning and in learning about myself is what I mean. I'm not telling people to go do courses. It's like, I'm going to start now. And I'm not just going to go, I'm doing Herbalife. Oh, it didn't work. That was crap. I'm going to do V-Shred's thing. Oh, that was crap. I'm going to do a different thing. Like, go with it as a process and be reflective and don't rush to your end result. Like, get a coach if you can afford one and work with them consistently and be reflective as you go and move in a direction, like fine tune what seems to work for you rather than just being completely erratic and wanting a result straight away. Maybe even do the early work of go and see a counselor maybe about the fact that you binge eat or you've got a poor relationship with food or whatever. And then because once you have all of that done, everything becomes easy. You can just do my rapid fat loss protocol and just get shredded. But it's, you have to have everything else in place first. Like, just eat well for a week. Don't diet. Don't do anything. Don't cut out any foods. Don't just flip and buy a vegetable. Buy some legumes, which I bang on about all the time. Like, in the West, we just don't eat enough legumes in general because they're time consuming, but you can now get microwave lentils that actually taste quite nice. Like, I'd never eat a lentil in my life if it wasn't for being able to get it quickly and easily. So I think that's my thing, is just like slow down and take responsibility for making yourself less shit. That's it in a nutshell. Slow down and take responsibility for making yourself less shit.
That's a great less shit tip.
It's very,
because the right way is usually the fastest way, isn't it?
Yeah. And I say this to people as well, is I say about my Instagram stories, like, okay, my Instagram stories are maybe not as fun as, you know, watching your favorite celebrity gimp on Love Island or whatever, and they're not as gossipy or whatever. But if you genuinely invested your time in watching every one of my Instagram stories for a year or 2 or 3, whatever you've been watching other junk, I do get DMs from people going, you've never heard from me before. I've never given you any money before, never done any of your courses, but I just read all your posts and watched your stories and just kind of learned and adjusted based on stuff you said, and you've changed my life. Thanks very much. And it's like,
that's great.
You know, I'd love to be able to do that with more people. They're a bit of a diamond in the rough because they paid attention. No one really cares about free information, you know, enough. They don't care enough. So, you know, they don't assign enough value. But yeah, I think for me, it's just like do the work, the slow work, and don't do it just the fastest way and
except with doing the rapid fat loss
Exactly.
after you've done all the slow stuff.
Exactly. Like even rapid fat loss, it's still like, okay, you do a 2-week rapid fat loss phase and it's like, well, I've got 50 pounds to lose. It's like, you can't just do rapid for 50 pounds. Like, well, to be honest, you can, like people have, but I maybe shouldn't say that on air, but one of the case studies I often show is like Mr. AB. It's like a medical case study. He fasted for 385 days.
That's right.
Have you seen that one?
Yeah. Insane.
It's mad.
Yeah.
And he got shredded. like I just sort of imagine him like on the stage afterwards, just like bam, like I'm ripped.
I haven't eaten for a year. Yeah.
But
Just imagine how good that food tasted. He probably left him with a whole bunch of problems. Because he was like given the vitamin injections, that right? And there was some like yeast in there as well, and a few other things to keep him normal. And, it's a long time. Now, normally we go to something worth sharing as well.
I think that we're a bit short on time.
I think we've got plenty. Now, this goes alongside our Be Less Shit tip too, because this game is actually called Shitty Choices. Right? Okay. Now, it's a would you rather game.
An A or B. Would you rather A or would you rather B?
So normally we would just select, but I'm going to give you options. Number 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Okay. 3.
Roulette time.
3.
All right, Martin.
I haven't read these.
To finish the podcast on a note. Would you A, rather make out with someone, feel something wet and realize they just peed their pants? Or B, drunkenly make out with someone and throw up all over them?
Ooh.
I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna give away like my sort of kinks by talking about this.
I would love to go with A.
You don't have to go, I would love to vomit on someone.
I would love
give it away.
I would love their pee on me. That would be amazing. No, it's not. I think vomit's gross, right? So probably I'll go with the first one. Like I was making out with them. That's nice, cool. And then I feel something wet. They wet themselves. That's probably because I was so good. I'm going with that one.
Nervous Pete. It's because you're so famous now. That's what it is.
Yeah. It's all in interpretation.
There was a fan.
I've interpreted the A. Like, yeah.
I like
it's actually become a positive. Yeah. That's a good game. I like that.
It's a risky game. There's some horrendous questions in there.
Oh, really?
They'll really make you question whether or not you should play with family members. And so the way it normally works is there's an A and B card so that you don't get like influenced by other people. So you just go like A, and then you're in a group of 4 people and you're like, oh, you'd rather take it in the bum. That's interesting.
So like on the count of 3, it's great. Most people are born with some sort of sense of shame or can be embarrassed somehow. I have been missing that since birth. So I think, and I look, if I do ever sense any sort of awkwardness, I like to bask in it. I quite enjoy it. So this game was made for me.
It's actually, to come full circle to finish this podcast too, this game was actually given as a secret Santa gift to an old coach of ours who was a Mac uni graduate.
Yes.
And then she gave it to us because she was traveling. There you go. So thank you for the shitty choices.
Now, if people wanted to go to your live seminar or reach out for your other services, like your course, for example, where could they find you?
Best places are, I guess, in the show notes. They can jump on my Mac now where they'll get that code. And best place really to find me these days is Instagram. I'm on there every day, sharing stories and whatnot. And I do my best to go through my DMs and get back to people as much as I can. And then all my website, macnutritionuni.com. Like if you type in Mac Nutrition, like it all comes up, top of Google and stuff. So if they want to know more about Mac Nutrition Uni and studying, our next intake, it's kind of a good time. They can start thinking about it. We're actually creating a prospectus, like a proper, uni looking prospectus, so that people can see, the types of jobs that people are getting, what they're doing with the qualification, where it's highly respected and this, that, and the other. So macnutritionuni.com for the 12-month qualification to become a fully insurable nutritionist, MNU certified nutritionist. And then martinmcdonald.com. And like I mentioned there, my podcast as well. If they're into your podcast, they might be into listening to mine. So that's Not Another Nutrition Podcast on iTunes and Spotify and YouTube, all that jazz. So yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you for coming on.
No, thanks very much. I enjoyed it.
It was fun and informative.
Had a laugh. That's what we always want to.
Bit inappropriate, which I love.
Just the right amount of sprinkle of that
Yeah.
stuff.
Bagging out dead people, That's
When
on me.
my PA was like, oh, they might ask you what your most embarrassing experience is. And I was like, how do you know that? And she was like, oh, I listened to one of their podcasts and they asked someone else it. And I said, oh, and what's made me think of that is you saying, oh, I don't really get embarrassed and stuff. And I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to come up with anything like what's embarrassing. But then you saying they're a bit inappropriate. And I wasn't particularly, I basked in it. And this is what's really brought it up in my mind, because I was doing a talk on intermittent fasting, right? And I've said intermittent fasting a million times.
You said intermittent farting?
You're damn right you did.
Even worse. I said, it was at a big conference, right? So I'm talking and I'm like, yeah. So, and I went, I'm a big fan of intermittent fist. I mean, and then everyone I sort of went, did they hear that? And I went, I definitely didn't just say intermittent fisting. And I was like, then so everyone just starts laughing in the audience, and it was being filmed. So I looked at the camera and was like, I just said that on camera and I'm not going to live that down. And then it was like on the internet, and then everyone's like, oh, you're a fan of intermittent fisting.
And
but anyway,
people weighing on you, apparently.
Yeah. But anyway, so I just thought, yeah, the right amount of inappropriate. But I don't know why that came out of my mouth. Like a Freudian slip. I was just like, oh my goodness, that's unbelievable.
Okay.
So close. Yet
good
so
morning's the exercise. You know what that is, right? When I was going through my PT course, one of the teachers there was quite easily embarrassed, but he was just like a proper guy, like couldn't joke around with you, whatever. And he said, right. Instead of good mornings, he called them morning glories. And funny, but extra funny because of the mouth that it came out of. Like, my goodness, like no one should know that I get boners sometimes. It was so good.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, that
intermittent fisting with morning glories. It's been an absolute pleasure, Martin. That's a great way to finish. That'll also be our 60-second snippet, so look out for that.
Amazing.
Thanks, Mike.
Cool.